Hello and welcome to this week's Boardroom Buddies podcast. And this week I am joined by Joanna Damani of Sparkly Hippo Virtual Solutions, which is a fascinating name, and I'll ask her all about that in a moment. Joanna is an amazing woman. She runs her own business. She has a background in international banking. She has been a single mum. She has 3 children of her own and is now a grandma as well, and runs a business. So got a very interesting story there. But in her business, she helps business owners to maximize the apps and the processes that they have already in their business to help give them back time. She helps with their bookkeeping, but goes that step beyond that in as much as she also acts as a financial advisor, which is really important if you are a small business. So she helps them to grow and scale up their business. So we're going to ask Joanna now all about her and the name and your life. So welcome, Joanna. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Jackie. Glad to be here.
Good, good. So first of all, tell me about the name.
So it all started, I've always loved hippos, and hippos are one of the most misunderstood creatures because of their sheer size, but they're very quick and cunning, and they're also highly matriarchal. And having my children and trying to find a work-life balance is one of the reasons I started my business. The sparkly side of it, unfortunately for me, my first job as a young adult was in a jewelry store, which made me into a horrendous magpie. I never actually took any of my paycheck home, but it's been a lifelong joy to invest in pretty sparkly things. And I craft a lot, and everything I do is, I hate to say, covered in glitter, but you can't have enough. So that's where the
No.
name comes from.
You
Yeah.
can never have enough sparkle.
No, exactly.
Oh,
Yeah.
lovely. Okay. So obviously we can tell from your accent that you're not native to the UK.
That's right. So I grew up mostly in Bermuda, which, the infamous Bermuda Triangle. My mother is actually from Birmingham. I
Oh,
spent the first 5 years of my life up north. So when I moved to Bermuda just before my 5th birthday, I had a quite engaging, shall we say, northerners accent, which took me quite a few years to disappear. Although when I do speak to my godparents' family, it does tend to spring back a little bit.
yeah. Yeah.
Um, so it has a bit of an American twang because we get a lot of US television, but during my growing up years, I actually spent my summers in Kent with my mother's parents. So it's a bit all over. It's hard to place. I just refer to it as a mid-Atlantic accent and leave it at that.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
Oh, that's lovely, lovely. So
Yeah.
tell us about your kind of work history then. Or also, I mean, being nosy, I'm interested in the kids and all that kind of
That's
stuff.
right. That's right. So as you mentioned, I have 3 children. That my daughter is 30, um, and we spent the first 12 years just her and I, juggling all the things that a single parent has to juggle. We were out the door at 7:30 in the morning, not back
Yeah.
home until 5:30, 6 o'clock at night, and juggling a profession with that. Roll on a few years, and then I got married. I had my sons. But it's always about trying to find a work-life balance. My husband and I work different shifts. He's a counselor, so he worked kind of long hours. We've always had to find a balance. During this time, I was building my career in the international banking business,
Right.
and working incredibly long hours, anywhere, never a 40-hour week, usually 60, 70 hours, sometimes longer. Um, when my youngest came along, who's now 11, I was missing out on so much. By the time he was 4, we had moved over to the UK. My older son is actually dyslexic. We had found out a few years earlier, and we wanted to provide him to maximize his opportunities by
Yeah.
coming here where there's more understanding and support. Um, yeah, so I was working incredibly long hours. And by the time my then 5-year-old, he said to me, Mummy, can you come to this school event? And I had missed it again because I was
Yeah.
commuting between Somerset and Birmingham every other week, which in itself was a challenge.
Yes.
So then I thought, okay, you didn't have children to miss out on their childhood because you can't get it back. And with my daughter, it was just her and it was so hands-on. Um,
Mm.
so what I decided to do was start looking at things I could do alongside my banking job. So I started to reduce my hours, reduce to a 40-hour week.
Yeah.
Um, it's crazy when I say reduce to 40 hours.
Yeah.
At the same time, kind of looking around and building my business on the side. Because I had worked with a lot of small to medium businesses in the banking arena, or they had been our clients, I kind of knew what it was that helped them to grow versus what tripped them up and caused them to fail. And
Yeah.
one of those things was time management or resource management, something that that was my bread and butter.
Yeah.
I was all about project management, budgets, maximizing the limited resources we were given to reach something on deadline. Um, and also the customer service journey was part of my remit. And
Hmm.
we had offshore teams in India at the time, and
Wow.
training them in situ to help them understand that it's not just a script. There are certain intonations or nuances that you have to include in order to
Yes.
get the message across. So I found that in the first 2 years working alongside my other job that I, it was something I could do. You know, as a business owner, it's your baby.
Mm.
you've started it from nothing, and you get completely entrenched in doing this, doing this, doing this, doing this, and seldom have the time to look up and think, oh, actually, I could use what I've already done and repackage it or tweak it somewhat to be able to make it into something else.
Yes.
And that's where the advisory services come in. I was recently speaking with an online coach that's been recording her sessions with clients for 2 years. And then I said, well, actually, how about you repackaging what 2 years worth of work on a YouTube channel to increase your YouTube presence or your social media presence? And it
Yeah.
never occurred to her. So little things like that. Sometimes a
Yeah.
second pair of eyes
Hmm.
lends. Um, and then with the maximizing of resources and trying to get more with what you already have, that's where the automations have come in. The bookkeeping is a long game. You know, you eventually see the benefits of making small changes.
Yeah.
But with automations, I can instantly, once they're complete and in situ, I can instant release sometimes 8 hours a week,
Hmm.
sometimes
Yeah.
more, back into a business owner's day or week or month. And that just in itself grows because then they have the power to say, hang on a second, I can take a minute, take a breath, rethink about what I'm doing, or even more importantly, go back to networking, face to face marketing, face to face conversations that we seldom make the time for because we're so busy trying to keep the business afloat. Um,
Yes.
so the automations allow a business owner to put themselves back into the equation rather than getting caught up with
Mm.
all the admin and behind the scenes stuff that, in all honesty, doesn't need a human to do. You know,
Mm.
we can harness the power of the apps that we're using and let them talk to each other. Like
Yeah.
we set them up, they talk to each other,
Mm.
and then we can do what things that only a human can do.
Yeah. So doesn't that kind of, in a way, dehumanize the uh, process? You know?
Well, that is a comment I often hear. And on the surface of it, it's easy to say, yes, if everything's automated, we lose the human experience. But in actual fact, if you look at someone with a brick and mortar business, someone walks in, they buy their products, they walk out again, that's the end of the human connection.
Mm.
If, for example, you walk in and they buy the product and they say, would you like me to email you your receipt?
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
So you email them the receipt, and on the bottom of that, it says, we will include you in all future emails about products you may be interested in, but you can unsubscribe at any time, right?
Yes.
So most people don't look at those. I mean, there's one shoe store that I go to that does that, and I get all sorts of information. And then the next step, of course, is once they say yes, the next step is, well, you know, you bought this product. Did you know there's also this product? And we have a special offer on that product, and you may be interested in this. So it gives you an opportunity to have a more touch points with your customer and makes
Mm.
them feel special because
Yes.
you're only giving them the information that supports or is similar to things that they like already.
Yes.
But then it increases the human touch point. And then if they do call up and say, hey, I got an email saying you now have my favorite thing in purple. Can I, does it come in any other colors? Or they'll go onto your website and have a look. If they go onto your website, you can also connect your website to your Facebook, and they look at all the other things on your website. And then next thing you know, you can then change the email to say, hey, we saw you were also looking at not just hippos, but also ostriches. So we
Yeah.
have a special offer on ostriches or an incentive. And then the other
Well,
really cool thing, and we've all bought something from Amazon, is that you can also say, we saw you bought this product. Would you mind doing us a review? So that the next person that buys it has a bit more information about it. So that's another way to personalize their experience with your business. And then,
that's,
of course, the biggest thing, of course, is not only does it encourage footfall, you share the information about your products and services, but then when you do have the next conversation, say if you do outward bound like health check sales calls with your VIP clients, you can then see all the things they've been doing. So you can say, hey, how was that hippo that you purchased? Is it eating the grass nicely? Because you have it all there in front of you. So it actually improves the human experience.
okay. All right. So a lot of this sounds like marketing orientated.
It can be, yes.
Yeah. So are there other automations that a small business can do that kind of helps give them time back?
Yes, definitely. So, depending on what type of business you have, if you have an online business, for example, and all your clients are virtual, you can create the whole onboarding experience for them and for you can be automated. So, say you're selling a course, for example, and it has downloadable workbooks.
Yes.
The instant that they decide to make the purchase, they'll get an email saying, thank you for your purchase. Please look out for this next email. It will have your links, or you'll receive a workbook that for you to download. And then follow in a couple of days. Have you gotten the workbook? I see that you've gotten it, but you haven't downloaded it. So kind of keep them encouraged. If you have a bricks and mortar business, an alternative would be to automate the like I said, the review process. And then one of the really good automations for bricks and mortar is automating their point of sale. So it allows you to make better decisions about what products are selling in what quantities to what kind of people.
Mm.
And that in itself will help you manage your inventory better.
But
So
it isn't just for products, is it? It's
no, it's products and services. There are very few tasks. If you do it once or twice or on a regular basis, it's pretty much a guarantee that you can automate it. So
mm,
anything you do, if you copy and paste anything between one app like Excel maybe and your inventory system, that can be automated. If
right.
you like to send reminders, that can be automated. If you have a loyalty program where the more people buy, like grocery stores do, they get points, they can use those
Yes.
points for other things, that can also be automated.
Mm.
So, and there's lots of behind the scenes. If you're looking at selling a new product or service, all the that can be put out on your social media, and
Mm.
then also it'll help you can automate the collection of information about who's doing it, who isn't, who's interested, who isn't, and that once again helps you to refine the products and services that you're selling.
Mm. So do you help business owners to automate their bookkeeping as well?
Yes. So if you have to collect invoices and receipts, or you have payments coming in or going out, we all set up direct debits for the things that we pay personally, but that can also happen in a business setting.
Mm.
If you're buying and selling products, the correlation between the buying and the selling and your incoming and outgoing funds, all that can be automated. If you have a membership where people have recurring invoices, that can be automated. And you can also send a thank you email once they've paid, which is a nice little touch.
Yeah. Sounds really interesting.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
it also sounds, from someone outside who's a bit long in the tooth,
yeah,
like, oh God, that's really techy and I don't know where to start and I wouldn't know
yeah,
what to
yeah.
do.
Well, and that's why we would have a conversation. So when we would have our discovery call, for example, I wouldn't say to you, do you need your point of sale connected via a Zap to do ABC?
Right.
That's not what I would ask. I'd say, what is your ideal way of doing things? Or
Mm,
conversely, what are the things you dread doing every week, month? Or what are the things that take up most of your time? You know, or even what do you do with the information you have about your customers or clients? Where do you keep it? What do you find difficult to find?
mhm,
You know, those are just very kind of basic questions, that as business owners, we have such an intricate knowledge of our own business. And what I can do
yeah.
is listen to what my clients say about what they're doing now. And
Mm,
then it's my role to find ways to take away the stuff that doesn't need them, that
mhm,
doesn't need, it needs the expertise of how they've done it in the past, but it doesn't need them to do it every day or every week.
yeah.
Because I mean, a computer is only as good as the information we put into it.
Mm,
Likewise, our business, if we're keeping everything in our head, we're losing an opportunity to expand on what we're
yes.
already doing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So, um, can so if someone like me, for instance,
Yeah.
would I have to automate everything, or can you just start with little bits?
You can start. I generally suggest in the discovery score, we kind of highlight the top three things you either want to shift off your to-do list
Mm,
or take the most time. So
yeah.
things you least enjoy or the things that take the most time. And we come up with a list of two or three things to focus on.
Mm,
Um, and depending on what you have in place already, will determine the priority. So ideally, you want to use things you're already using and maximize what they can do for you.
yeah.
Um, get that in place, let it tick over for a little while, depending on your comfort level, and then see if there's anything else. And then we have the next three on your list
Mm,
and address
mm,
those three things. So it doesn't have to be, throw the baby out with the bathwater, get in all this new systems, and then I walk away. Not at all. Because having
right.
worked in a bank, that's the worst way to do things and in the best way to encourage things to fail.
Yeah. Yeah.
So what are your least favorite things? Let's get those automated. I offer a long-term support package. So if anything
Okay.
goes wrong or you're doing something radical and you need hand holding, I'm there for that as well.
So you don't have to use certain software or anything like that. You just help people use what
Yeah,
they've got and
yeah,
kind of
yeah.
join up the dots.
That's right. So if we have someone, for example, that has all their inventory on a spreadsheet, right? Good old fashioned, easy to
Yeah,
use,
yeah.
everybody understands it. We can still automate how they manage their inventory from their spreadsheet. And then they may consider connecting it to however they collect their money, whether it's Square or SumUp. There's ways to connect that from a spreadsheet, you know? So it doesn't have to be a huge outlay of cash on buying new apps. We can harness what they have already.
I see. I see. So would you create like a schedule with somebody? So you'd
Yes.
have the call with them, and they'd decide on what they wanted to do, and you could just kind of create a long-term plan
Yes, exactly.
automation.
Exactly. So we'd have, as I said, the initial discovery call. We'd identify the first, say, three, maybe six things they want to try automating.
Okay.
I'd go
Mhm.
back to them with a very detailed proposal and a time frame on how we could phase these things in. And
Mm,
that would be based on their comfort level.
mm,
Some people are more comfortable doing everything at once. Some people want to try one thing at a
mm,
time, let it settle, and then try the next thing. And that's
mm,
entirely based on the person's
mm,
aptitude and preferences.
mm.
But
But I
yes,
suppose
really
also it depends on, as a small business, what your budget is,
does.
how your cash flow is and all that kind of
That's
thing.
right. That's right. And the way I often suggest to think about that is if as a business owner you're billing your time out at a moderate 50, based on your experience, £50 an hour, you
Hmm.
know, which is probably underpricing ourselves as business owners, right?
Yes.
Um, so say £50 an hour for ease of doing the math, and you're spending 2 or 3 hours on following up with clients or or stock taking once a year. That can be
Yeah.
a 2-3 day process, right?
Mm.
If things are out of whack and you've taken 6 hours to figure that out, that's £300 you haven't
You're not
realized
earning.
of your own time, because you don't pay
Yeah.
yourself your value
No.
as a business owner. And you can have a choice. You can either have a VA that'll do it for you at substantially less than £50 an hour,
Yes.
or you can have a computer that you've paid for it once but does it every month for you without looking for a paycheck again.
Mm.
So it
Interesting.
actually maximizes your own value within your company by automating tasks that
Mm.
you do anyway.
Yeah. Yeah. And in Boardroom Buddies, this is something that I strongly recommend with
Yeah.
my clients, the members, is that, they outsource
Yes.
wherever they can,
Yes.
so that they are using their time
That's right.
better,
That's
more
right.
productively.
And that's actually a brilliant thing to touch on. So say they're outsourcing to a VA,
Yes.
right? And the VA currently spends, I had one example where a VA was spending 8 hours a week, so
Mm.
2 hours a day, downloading things, following up on invoices, making sure invoices were paid,
Mm.
confirming that the application was everything was completed, nothing was missing, and then going out to the client to say, everything's organized, you're ready to start, or here's your purchase, whatever the scenario. In this particular case, it was starting a course. She was spending 2 hours a day playing email games, email
Mm.
tag. We were able to automate the majority of that. So her work was actually half an hour instead of half an hour a day. So we saved an hour and a half a day. And then with the other hour and a half, she was able to do more effective client contact. So she
Mm.
could then follow up personal calls with the clients that had already onboarded.
Yeah.
So, you know, her the business owner was still able to pay the same amount, but got such more beneficial version of her ability.
Mm.
By her calling to the client from the previous week, say, "Hey, so glad how's things going? Is everything going as you expected?" That personal touch exponentially increased the testimonials and the positive reviews, because all the other stuff she's been spending her time on was done by a computer. She didn't need to do that.
Yeah. Yeah.
So outsourcing really is a prime opportunity to automate so many
Mm.
tasks, so
Mm.
many tasks.
Yeah. Yeah. And even those tasks that you might actually enjoy doing but
Mm,
are not productive.
that's
For
right.
instance, an accountant who does their own bookkeeping.
That's right.
As an accountant, you earn much more than you would pay a bookkeeping per hour.
Exactly. And you
So,
have to look at that difference. Exactly.
yeah,
So
yeah.
I think it's always good. I never recommend people to automate and then walk away completely,
Hmm.
because there's I check in on my clients to make sure that the automations are still doing what they should, that nothing has changed.
Yeah.
But also too, when you automate one thing, you think of other things. If you think of our experience collectively, um, over the last few years, right? With the pandemic and now everything being done by Zoom like this.
Mm.
Instead of me traveling, you and I probably wouldn't have met if we had to do face to. It was only face to face
No,
networking.
that is true.
Right? And if me traveling to you, that's an hour and a half there, an hour and a half back. That's 3 hours of my day that I can use for something more productive,
Yes.
um, rather than sitting in a motorway.
Hmm.
And it's one of those things that, booking a holiday. Years ago when I was a child, my mom used to go to the local travel agent
Hmm.
every paycheck and give the lady some money. We went into an account, then we'd go back, and it was the exciting day to book the tickets. But it would be a 2 hour session sitting in an office
Yeah.
booking tickets, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
What
Yeah.
excursions are we going to do now? We sit at home on phones at midnight. Oh, let's go here. This looks
Mm.
very fun.
Mm.
So automations have become the way of our world over the
Yes.
last few years. And now they're at a point they're so cost effective for business owners to harness that power themselves and then use their human experience
Mm.
and expertise where it's really necessary.
Mm.
You're not going to get an automated flight attendant on a plane, because that's where the human contact is
Mm.
best put. But we don't need a person to book our tickets for us
No.
anymore, you
Yeah.
know? I mean, it's still a joy. I still do like a travel agent personally, but you know, and even in that scenario, a travel agent will give you ideas and destinations and excursions you may not find yourself. And
Yes.
that's the role I play with business owners. That there may be things that they don't realize they can automate,
Mm.
and that's why the discovery call is so important.
Yeah. Oh, I know what I was going to ask you. I was going to ask you about the bookkeeping,
Yes.
because I know there's lots of, you know, bookkeepers that you can outsource stuff to, or virtual assistants who do bookkeeping and that kind of thing.
Yes.
But from our conversation, I understand that you go a little bit more than that, don't you? You do a little bit more than
Yes.
just bookkeeping for someone. So tell me about that.
Yes. So one of the benefits of having worked in a large company is that you see so many aspects of how businesses run.
Mm.
And because I was tasked primarily with project management and budgeting, and I worked with businesses in the retail sector, it helped me to understand that there's usually untapped resources within each small business because, as I mentioned earlier, they're so focused on doing it one way. This is the way they started, which is brilliant, and it's gotten them to where they are. But then you hit kind of a threshold or a ceiling when you can't get any further. So what I found is by doing their bookkeeping and collecting the information on how they sell, who they sell to, what it is they're selling, whether it be a product or a service, there's often ways that a second set of eyes, as it were, and based on previous experience, I can make suggestions on where they can better place what they're doing already.
Yes.
Whether it be resource bottlenecks, for example. So say they make, I don't know, they make a bag for
Mm.
the sake of argument, and a leather goods. They make leather goods, and they always buy them from a certain manufacturer, but they don't. They the way they sell their bags doesn't allow them to have a positive cash flow. So by changing the way, tweaking what they're doing to improve their cash flow, then they can buy more materials in bulk, perhaps, or have a better method of payment to their suppliers, which gives them an improved resource management. And then they can either pass that cost on or increase their profit margins because they've gotten a bonus. And
Yes.
sometimes one of the funny things I found in business, this is across all sectors, and even in families, if you have a new jug of milk, and I like really milky tea is the disclaimer. If you have a new bottle of milk, I'm going to have a big dollop of milk in my tea. But
Okay.
I have enough milk for that cup of tea. But then as the bottle gets lower and lower, I put a splash rather than a dollop, or, to drizzle.
Mm.
But I still have enough milk for my tea. And the same thing is true of expenses. So if you have oodles of cash left over, your expenses will match that. But if you restrict the amount of money you want to spend on expenses, you will figure out a way to make your expenses match what you have available.
Mm.
So one of the ways I help businesses